At my husband's funeral, a stranger approached me and said, "He always regretted hiding your poems." My heart stopped. I'd searched for them for years. That night, I climbed into the attic and found a locked box. Inside was every word I'd ever written, along with something that changed everything my children thought they knew about their father. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman to dig through her dead husband's secrets. I thought I knew Peter. We were married for almost 3 decades. I thought I knew every inch of that man, his routines, his moods, the way he hated olives on pizza, how he always wore that same faded Cardinals baseball cap in the summer. I thought I knew him. But the man I buried 3 months ago, he wasn't who I thought he was. It started at the funeral. That cold, gray afternoon in Springfield, Missouri. The church smelled like stale flowers and damp wool. People whispered condolences, patted my shoulder, told me how sorry they were. And then a stranger came up to me. An older man in a dark coat, his face lined like old leather, eyes darting like he was afraid of being seen. He leaned in, so close I could smell his breath. "He always regretted hiding your poems," he whispered. That's all he said. Then he turned and left, disappearing into the crowd before I could ask who he was. My poems? I hadn't seen those in years. I used to write all the time, poems about love, about the kids, about the little things in life that caught my heart. But Peter. He used to say they were silly. He'd laugh when I'd show him a new one. "You're wasting your time," he'd say. "Nobody cares about that artsy crap. Focus on the kids. On the house." Eventually, I stopped writing. I thought I lost the poems years ago when we cleaned out the old guest room. I remember asking Peter where they were once. He shrugged, said maybe they got thrown out. I believed him. But after that stranger at the funeral, I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, after the kids were asleep, I crept up to the attic. I hadn't been up there in years. The air smelled like dust and forgotten things. I found it, an old trunk tucked behind boxes of holiday decorations. Peter's trunk. The one he always said was just old work files. It was locked. I ran down, found the little tin where Peter kept random keys. One of those small, beat-up tins with a faded picture of a farm on the lid. I fumbled through it, my hands shaking, and finally found a small brass key. It fit. The trunk creaked open, and there they were. My poems. Stacks of them, bundled with rubber bands, some folded, some crumpled, but all mine. I stared at them, my heart pounding in my ears. But that wasn't all. There was a folder under the poems. Thick, worn, edges frayed like it had been handled a lot. I opened it. The first thing I saw was a birth certificate. My stomach dropped. Caleb Evans. Born June 4, 2004. Father, Peter Reynolds. Peter's son. I rifled through the folder. Letters. Photos. Receipts. Photos of Peter with a woman I'd never seen before. They looked happy. Intimate. His hand on her back. Kissing her. The letters were worse. Can't wait to see you next weekend. I miss you and Caleb so much. Don't tell anyone about us. Don't tell anyone. There were bank statements showing money going to an account I'd never seen. Thousands of dollars over the years. I sat there on the attic floor, shivering, my whole body numb. Peter had a second family. 4 years. I thought about all the times he said he had to work late. The weekend trips for conferences. The sudden mood swings. The way he always pushed me to stay home, take care of the kids, handle the house. All of it. I felt sick. But I didn't tell Sarah or David. Not yet. I needed to be sure. So I started digging. I went through our tax records, the boxes in the garage, the old emails on his laptop he never let me touch. And I found more. Peter had been controlling me for years. Not just with my poems. With everything. He made me feel like I wasn't enough. Like I was just a housewife, a mother, not someone with her own dreams. Every time I tried to start something, take a class, join a club, he'd find a reason to shut it down. I thought he was just being protective. But now I know. He didn't want me to shine. He didn't want me to have a life outside of him. And the poems? He kept them like trophies. Like proof that he could take something I loved and bury it. I sat in that attic for hours, going through every scrap of paper, every photo, every receipt. And the more I saw, the angrier I got. This wasn't just betrayal. It was theft. Peter stole my time. My energy. My voice. My life. And I wasn't going to let him get away with it, not even from the grave. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, staring at the box of my poems, at the folder with Peter's lies, my heart racing so fast it felt like it would burn right through my chest. By the time the sun rose, I had a plan. I wasn't going to keep this buried. Peter built this perfect image of himself for everyone, family man, hard worker, loyal husband. But I knew the truth now, and I wasn't going to let that version of him live on while I sat in silence. I started by tracking down that woman. Diane Evans. I found her address on one of the credit card statements buried in the folder. She lived in St. Louis, in a little brick house in a neighborhood that looked normal. Just like ours. I drove there 2 days later. Sarah thought I was going to visit a friend. When I pulled up, I saw a boy, Caleb. He was playing basketball in the driveway. He looked just like David when he was 10. Same shaggy hair, same freckles across his nose. It felt like a punch to the gut. I sat in the car for a long time, just watching. Diane came out of the house, calling for him. She was younger than me. Pretty, in that tired, worn-out way moms get when they're raising kids. She didn't see me. I left without knocking. But I wasn't done. The next week, I did something I never thought I'd do. I gathered every piece of evidence I had. The birth certificate, the letters, the photos, the financial records, and I mailed copies to Peter's old law firm, his church, and every single family member who had sat at the funeral saying what a good man he was. I even mailed a set to Diane. I wrote a letter too. It wasn't angry. It wasn't emotional. It was just the facts. This is the man you thought you knew. I signed my name at the bottom. Sarah and David were the last to know. I sat them down at the kitchen table, laid everything out, and told them the truth. Sarah cried. David stared at the table like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He had another family, I said. He lied to all of us. Sarah said she hated him. David didn't say a word for a long time, then finally whispered, I don't even know who he was. I didn't either. And I wasn't finished. I wanted to make sure Peter's secrets didn't just ruin the image of him. They needed to ruin the life he'd tried to build behind my back. I started digging into the accounts where Peter had been hiding money. I found out he'd set up a trust fund for Caleb. He was funneling money to Diane and their son, money that should have been for Sarah and David, for our family. I called a lawyer. We fought for months, but in the end, I got it all, the trust fund, the leftover savings, even the life insurance payout. I told Diane she wasn't getting a penny. She tried to fight it, said it was Peter's wish. I told her Peter's wishes didn't matter anymore. He was gone. And she could take care of her own damn child. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Because 2 weeks later, Diane showed up at my house. She rang the doorbell like she had every right to be there, standing on my porch like we were just two women with a misunderstanding. She had Caleb with her. And she wasn't there to apologize. No. She came to tell me that Peter had promised her everything, that they were supposed to get married when I finally died, her words. That he told her I was crazy, unstable, jealous, and that he stayed with me out of pity. She told me Caleb deserved a fair share because Peter loved him more. That's when I snapped. I told her exactly what I thought of her. Of Peter. Of the lies they built together. And when she started crying, I told her to get off my porch and never come back. She left, but not before Caleb turned and looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw it. The same manipulative charm Peter had. That same cold little spark. I realized then, this wasn't over. Not yet. After Diane and Caleb left my porch, I stood there in the cold, feeling like my insides were made of glass, ready to shatter at the slightest touch. I thought about slamming the door, crawling into bed, and pretending this nightmare never happened. But I couldn't. Peter wasn't here to control the story anymore. He wasn't here to twist the truth and make himself the hero in everyone's eyes. It was up to me now to finish this, to make sure the damage he caused didn't keep spreading like a disease. I hired a private investigator, Jeff Callahan. Local guy, rough around the edges, no nonsense. I gave him the folder and told him I wanted everything on Diane. I wanted to know how deep her lies went, if there were others like her, and if she had been scheming behind Peter's back too. What Jeff found made my skin crawl. Diane had been playing her own game. She wasn't just some innocent woman who got caught up with a married man. She was a grifter. Before Peter, she'd been involved with 2 other men, both older, both with money, both dead now. There were whispers, rumors of accidents, of sudden illnesses. Nothing proven. But the pattern was there. And Peter? He wasn't her first mark. Caleb wasn't just a love child, he was a ticket. A way to lock in financial security. It was sick. I took this information and filed a restraining order against Diane and Caleb. I made it clear, they had no claim to Peter's estate. If they came near my family again, they'd deal with the law. But that wasn't enough. I needed the world to know who Peter really was. So I started writing. Not just my poems, but everything. The whole story. I wrote it out in plain, ugly detail, how he lied, how he stole from his own family, how he kept my dreams locked away in a box like they were worthless scraps of paper. I wrote about the affair. The hidden son. The money siphoned off for years. The manipulation. The control. The way he tried to make me small. I sent it to the local newspaper. They published it. Front page. Beloved Springfield lawyer's hidden life exposed after death. It spread like wildfire. Clients started pulling their cases from Peter's former law firm. His name came down from the sign out front. His so-called friends stopped mentioning him. The church removed the plaque honoring him as a pillar of the community. Even Diane couldn't escape the fallout. She got fired from her job at a real estate firm when people connected her to the story. She tried to start a GoFundMe for Caleb's future, but it barely raised a few $100s before people flooded it with angry comments and demanded refunds. Sarah and David? They struggled, of course. How could they not? Their father wasn't the man they thought he was. But they were strong. We leaned on each other. And my poems? I published them. All of them. I put them in a book and self-published it. Nothing fancy, just a simple paperback I could hold in my hands. And when the first copy arrived in the mail, I sat on my porch with a cup of coffee, opened it to the first page, and smiled. Because I had my words back. Peter tried to bury them, but I dug them up. I brought them into the light. And I'll tell you what, I hope Diane and Caleb see that book someday. I hope they see my name on the cover, read the dedication to my children, and know that I won. Peter thought he could control me. He thought he could silence me. He thought he could build a life on lies. But in the end, it was his lies that destroyed him. And me? I finally got my voice back. And I'll never let anyone take it away again. After the story hit the papers, everything exploded. Diane tried to play the victim, posting online, crying on social media, saying I was a bitter widow trying to ruin her life. She painted me as the unstable one, said Peter had confided in her about how difficult I was, how I didn't understand him, how I was holding him back. She even tried to sue me. Claimed Caleb had a right to Peter's life insurance and assets. But I was ready. With the investigators' files, the bank statements, the letters, the trust documents, all of it laid out in black and white, I hired a ruthless attorney. Someone who wasn't afraid to tear apart Diane's story, piece by piece. It went to court. The courtroom was packed. Neighbors, friends, even people I hadn't seen in years came just to watch the show. I sat at the front, calm, holding a copy of my poems in my lap. Diane sat across from me, looking like she'd aged 10 years overnight. Caleb sat next to her, sullen, glaring at me like I had stolen something from him. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes, read through everything. When Diane's lawyer argued for Caleb's rightful inheritance, I watched as my attorney calmly laid out the truth: the fraudulent trust fund, the hidden accounts, the manipulation. Then we dropped the bombshell: Diane's past. Jeff, my investigator, had found more than I expected. Diane wasn't just a manipulator. She had a pattern: 2 previous relationships, both older men, both wealthy, both dying under sudden circumstances. The judge's face went hard as stone when she read that. Diane broke down, sobbing in court, but no one bought it. In the end, the ruling was clear: Diane and Caleb got nothing. Every penny Peter tried to squirrel away for them? Frozen. Seized. Handed over to me and my children. But I wasn't done. After the ruling, I went up to Diane in the hallway. She tried to look away, but I stepped right in front of her. "I know exactly what you are," I said, my voice low, steady. "You think you're the victim. But you're a predator. And you picked the wrong family." She just stared at me, tears streaking down her face, and I could see it: she knew she was finished. As for Caleb, well. A few weeks later, I heard he got expelled from school. Fighting. Bullying. Acting out. I wasn't surprised. That apple didn't fall far from the rotten tree. I wanted to wash my hands of the whole mess, but there was one more thing I had to do. I held a memorial service for Peter. Not a funeral, an honest reckoning. I invited everyone. The neighbors. The church. Peter's old law partners. Even the people who'd sent me those syrupy condolence cards when he died. And I told the truth. I stood at the front of the room, holding my book of poems, and I laid it all out: how Peter lied, how he manipulated, how he took my dreams and tried to bury them in a locked box. I read a poem from the book, one I wrote in the early days of our marriage, when I still believed in him. And then I read another. The one I wrote the night I found the box. By the time I was done, the room was silent. No one could look me in the eye. They all left quietly, faces pale. Peter's name, his legacy, was ashes. Sarah and David? They stood by me the whole time. It was hard, but they saw the truth. And we were stronger for it. As for me? I sold the house. Moved into a small cottage near the lake. I write every day now. I published another book. A full collection of poems about my life, my family, the lies, the betrayal, the fight, and the freedom I finally found. It's selling well. People read it and reach out, telling me they feel seen, that they know what it's like to lose themselves and fight to get back. And every time I hold that book in my hands, I remember the box Peter tried to bury me in. I remember the lies. And I know, he didn't win. I did. And I'll never let anyone take my voice away again.